One area where I see a lot of stress being created is when we're comparing ourselves to either other people or just comparing ourselves to an idea about where we should be. So it may be that you might be comparing yourself to a colleague at work, or if you run your own business, somebody in a similar industry to you, and comparing where you are to where they are, and seeing the difference, seeing a difference in that. Or maybe you're comparing yourself to where you think you should be, or what you think you should be doing, or what you should be achieving. So there's this comparison going on in your own mind, and as a result of that comparison, you're feeling really bad. We feel stress, we feel tension, we might feel guilt or upset or an unfairness, or we feel a disruption within ourselves that isn't particularly pleasant to experience. Often clients will say to me, well, how can I stop this? I want to fix this in some way. And the way that I see us working is that this is a function of our mind. This is what our minds do. Over years, it will collect ideas about who we are and who we should be, and who other people are, and it stores them up and will then present them to us in often in a bid to be helpful to us, but it's not particularly helpful, because we're always trying to work out sort of where we are in the world, and how we're doing, and where we should be going, and how we can progress. We listen to these thoughts and we think they're telling us something really helpful and useful. That we think they are telling us fact about where we are and where those other people are. In the same way that maybe when we were at school, we had a system of coloured tables, and the red table was the bad table to be on, where all the naughty kids were on, and the green table was the really good table, and the blue table in the middle, where they were kind of middle of the road. So we knew where we were. We were, either on the green table or the red table or the blue table. And life isn't like that. Human beings aren't like that. And the nature of human beings aren't like that. How we perceive life changes on a moment-to-moment basis, and that goes for everybody. So it's not as clear-cut as that, but our thinking would have us believe that it is. So when we start to notice that, oh, my thinking is trying to persuade me that this is fact. My thinking is saying to me, they're better than you. And it's trying to tell me that it's fact. And when we notice that it can't possibly be fact, because for one, life isn't as linear as that. But two, we don't know. We don't know. And one thing I do know is that we're the worst judge of who we are and what we've achieved and where we are in life and how other people perceive us. We are really poor judges of that. And if you had 100 people in a room and you all asked them about yourself, they'd all give you a different answer about how good you were, or where you were in relation to somebody else. What comes to mind is like TripAdvisor. You can read the the different entries for one particular restaurant, and you'd think you were looking at hundreds of different restaurants. So we're really bad at assessing things in that kind of very black and white way. It all goes down to our own personal perception, which is made up of our thought. Okay, so we come to this idea that, oh, actually what I'm thinking isn't as reliable as I thought it was. And the ideas that I have about myself, they're really not that very reliable at all. So, so kind of where does that leave us? Well, how I see it is that we're always okay until we have the thoughts that start to tell us that we're not. Yeah. So we can feel fine. And I see this often with professionals and business owners and entrepreneurs, and they'll feel great until they go to an arena where there are other people that they can compare themselves to. And then they'll have a thought. Yeah, and it's that thought that takes them away from their feeling of okay and that they're doing well. So when we notice that we were okay and it was the thought that took us away from that, then when we let go of the thought, we go back to being okay. And it really is as straightforward as that. When we see that, oh, that thought that I've just had, that actually doesn't really have any fact in it. I'm the worst judge to try to work out where I am in relation to that person or how good that person is, and that's just not helpful to me to go down that road, right? I'm just going to leave that there. We then go back to feeling okay because the thought will pass, because that's the nature of thinking. Thinking doesn't hang around very long. It just naturally goes. But interestingly as well, sometimes we do that kind of thinking, which can feel quite habitual because maybe we do it quite often. And when we let it go and it passes, we often have a fresh thought after it. Yeah, so you might think, oh, they're doing so well in their career. They apply for all those jobs and they've got that promotion and they've got this and they've got that. Or you might think, oh, their business is really good. They're all over social media. They seem to have lots of clients. Da 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 da. And then when we become alive to what we're doing and we're aware of it and we're like, right, we're not going to do that anymore because that's not helpful, and we let it go, or maybe we become distracted and we stop doing that thinking. In that little space that follows, often a fresh thought will occur. So it'd be like, well, why don't you apply for that job? Or why don't you update your CV? Or maybe you should do something on social media, or maybe you shouldn't point in that direction. Maybe you should change your message and maybe it should be this, or whatever the thought is. We may have a fresh perspective. So in many ways, we focus on the comparison thinking that's unpleasant, and we want to fix that instead of noticing that, oh, well, when that just goes on in my mind, and then when I let it go, I actually end up with the next step. So in some situations, it can be that we're doing a little bit of reorganizing in our brain, kind of like a bit of a clearing out session. And it's like, oh no, I don't need that anymore. But oh, now I've created some space. And now I've got something fresh and something new that I can move forward to. So the way I see it is that it's not about getting rid of the comparative thinking because we're on a hiding to nothing. It's about changing the relationship and noticing what happens afterwards, and the richness that can happen after that, after we've done that thinking and when we've let it go. And really focusing and noticing on that. That's where the difference is.